Emma is also susceptible to making mistakes, and that would be totally fine if she showed a modicum of humility and corrected herself. Instead, she plays the role of hall monitor. She polices what one can say, what they should believe, who they can talk to, and what they can talk about. It sure is.
Oh my God, the projection. Think I was wrong about the Venezuelan gangs, do you? Did you see this? Check this out. There was, in fact, people stabbed by a Venezuelan man, and he was looking real Venezuelan while he was doing it. So, checkmate. Gotcha, Emma, so-called ambassador of the left. Apparently, TYT goes after Majority Report, featuring, as Jank has been calling them, Silly and Billy, or Beavis and Butthead. He's called them both Beavis and Butthead and Silly and Billy. Yeah, he's got a lot of great names for the Vanguard. Shout out to the Vanguard.
Whoopsies. Now, if you watch Beavis and Butthead on the Vanguard YouTube channel, which the Majority Report hilariously treats.
Plugging our show. What's up? Thanks for selling our merch, Anna. Anyway, you guys aren't here to listen to us yammer and catch up like the old pals we are. We have some juicy drama, some hot, piping hot tea. In fact, I have some herbal tea right here to sip along as we react to Anna Kasparian. And man, I'll tell you what, we had a little birdie send this to us. And I think even the broader BreadTube community, the broader media community is, I don't want to say who it was, but one, maybe two channels with millions of subscribers reached out to us and was like, holy shit, you guys have made it to the big time. You are just getting under Anna's. So
if I was to posit a guess, Kalinsky. I'm gonna create more drama. I'm gonna create more tea here in real time for y'all. I'm gonna guess Kyle Kalinsky. That's where I'm throwing my chips in.
I'm just telling you guys, we don't drop those names. We really value the fact that there are people out there in the ether that support our show, that watch our show, that don't necessarily want to be associated publicly with the gutter guard. But let me tell you guys, for realsies, there are so many powerful people in independent media that just fucking hate Jank and Anna now.
Oh yeah. They've burnt basically every bridge they had with anyone serious, anyone.
And for what? That's what I keep asking. For what? What did you get? You didn't get a seat at the table. Like, you got a reply from fucking Donald Trump Jr. Was it worth it? I ask you, was it worth it? Was that enough to just debase yourselves, to sell out everything? How much was Polymarket Studios branding really worth? Like, what, 2 million? 2 million? I figure you must make more than that yearly. That's not gotta be like some huge get where it's just like, yeah, okay, no, let's just sell out all our values and beliefs and just be like, hey, by the way, MAGA is a populist movement, so are we, and we gotta have a beer with MAGA. But the real enemy is Sam Cedar and that Silly and Billy guy.
With real clout or profile. It's really wild to see. And yeah, just to preface this story a little bit, obviously, Zach's in the Philippines trying to enjoy his vacation. But just 2 days ago, TYT went live with this headline: Anna Kasparian responds to Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland. If you guys look under the live channel, you can see, I believe, the original video. I'm not sure if it's here.
Like, yeah, Anna responds to critics. Yeah, or
here
attacks.
It is. Anna responds to attack. So all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, it's going down. I realized this was the headline.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. Hey, was there a bet today on mutes? Well, there, we got one mute. I was saying I'm going to go straight to the source right now. I want to see Anna's unadulterated, unfiltered take on Majority Report. But I do want to add, go support the Vanguard if you haven't already. Hit subscribe. Me and the Vanguard are currently in a race for who's going to reach 100,000 first, and it's a beautiful race, one in which everyone wins. Everyone wins. The left are growing in power and popularity, and then now you have the ability to go hit sub on the Serf Times and the Vanguard. It's the race to 100,000. No, there isn't a race. I just created it right now. I just started. Do it, everybody. Go subscribe to both channels. They're both awesome. Silly and Billy. Anna responds to attacks Attacks. Deadly attacks.
Last week, Emma Vigeland and Sam Cedar of the Majority Report thought it would be fun to put out a more than 18-minute long video chastising and mocking me for my willingness to admit that I was wrong, in part for downplaying the possibility of Donald Trump implementing Project.
It was really funny. Of all the corrections you gotta like issue, by the way, and the list is long. My word, oof, we would be here for hours if we went through all of them. Sorry, but like I'm not talking about the birthing persons. I'm not talking about the Venezuelan gangs or the Target stores apparently closing down due to shoplifting. The outrageous amounts of shoplifting within all of these predominantly certain kinds of communities, I might say. All that stuff, all just falsifiably incorrect. But no, she wanted to issue a correction and get on the record and say that she was wrong in saying that Project 2025 was a populist and MAGA-based movement, that Donald Trump himself was not actually populist, but because he's going with Project 2025. In fact, I think if you look at the Project 2025 tracker, they're like over 30% implemented already in 1 month alone. They are shoving it down as quickly as they can. It's the just fucking speed run, the Sonic the Hedgehog of fucking fascism. So they're doing that, as everyone predicted, including TYT, I should add. Like, if everyone has forgotten, Cenk ran for president of the United States on a platform that Donald Trump was going to be a fascist and that he had to be stopped, and he had to do everything. He was a break in case of emergency candidate to stop the incoming fascism that was Donald Trump. He was very specific. He used the word fascism constantly. But anyways, that notwithstanding, they've changed their tune, and apparently because they said MAGA is still populist, they're still claiming that's a claim that they're making, that MAGA cares about populist and populist policies, but Donald Trump does not. So Donald Trump has betrayed the MAGA movement. That's the correction that she issued, and that's why everyone has been mocking her ruthlessly, and I would say with just cause.
Project 2025 upon winning the election.
People have admitted that they made a mistake.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. More news.
So I just want to address something.
We have multiple levels of streamception going on here. This was me watching the Vanguard, watching Anna, watching Majority Report, watching Anna.
I was wrong about Project 2025. MAGA hates Project 2025.
Oh, Burnham was so
and I
right.
thought that Donald Trump actually cared about his base, because in his first term, he seemed to be swayed by his base. He seemed to listen to his base.
Wait a second. Wait. MAGA hates Project 2025?
Where's the evidence of that?
What?
Oh, see, when I was watching this, because I also covered this as well, I immediately was like, ooh, I'm a huge fan, by the way. Love the Majority Report. Go follow if you don't already. I'm pretty sure you do. A lot of overlap in our audiences, but go subscribe to them. This is not any shade on them. But I said at the time, she's going to try and get you on this because she's going to pull up those polls that showed that Project 2025 was enormously unpopular amongst everyone, in the race to the election. So that's what I think she's probably going to pull up right now and use as the gotcha moment for the two of them.
What is this MAGA that they speak of?
You know what? Sam is totally right. It is he who understands the MAGA base better than anyone else. I mean, the guy goes out of his way to engage in dialogue with Trump voters. He seeks to understand where their hearts and minds are at. Here he is touting his openness to understanding people who vote differently than he does.
We can't take the power back without talking to Trump voters and making them realize their mistake. Well, wait.
So let's pander to them first.
Pick your battles doesn't have anything to do with talking to Trump voters. Yeah. Or not.
Or flattering false
You've just
consciousness.
decided to make some weird connection there.
Wait, this is the gotcha? Are you serious? Okay, well, sorry, I stand corrected. Maybe she's not just going to pull that back up and be like, he's factually incorrect. If you look at the Shirley polling did show that apparently Project 2025 was unpopular amongst Republicans as well. First off, Republicans are different than, say, the MAGA cult. And the MAGA cult, as I've said, and I think has kind of shown itself to be true, definitely just follows whatever the dear leader says. And it doesn't really matter if he's changing his tune on the go or if his policies directly implement and negatively affect them. They just want wins. They just want liberal tears. That's what they care about more than anything. Fuck Joe Brandon. That's the rallying cry. So at the end of the day, if Donald Trump is like, yeah, so I'm going to be doing this thing, and then you say to them, this is going to negatively impact your life. This is going to make your life harder. It is going to increase the cost of groceries. You may see a huge amount of, like, the price of eggs is going to go up. You know, that's practically a meme at this point. A lot of these policies that you think are getting liberal wins are going to effectively make you and your family sick. That doesn't seem to be an area where there's a lot of room to win people over. But in terms of talking to right-wingers or Republicans, I mean, the Majority Report has a call-in show. It's half of what he does. Half of the show is Sam sitting there being like, all right, caller, I'm going to take in your calls. And Republicans, it doesn't, the libertarians call it all the time. Republicans call it all the time. MAGA calls in as well, and he will talk to them. He directly reaches out and has a call-in show in which he talks to people who have very, very strong political disagreements with him. Like, of all the things to levy on Sam Seder, that ain't one. Like, you know, that's not a fair call out.
Can't take the power back without talking to Trump voters and making them realize their mistake. Actually, no, we can't. There's millions and millions of other people who need to be motivated to get into the fight.
Is that I am coming from the Polymarket Studios?
Insulting them and lumping them all together as the worst among them doesn't help either. I don't know when we have done that with all 78 million people, but I got news for you. The percentage of those who voted for Mitt Romney, they can suck my. I don't care about any of that. Like, I don't care about any of that.
Astute analysis. There you have it. Sam Seder, noted expert on Trump voters who he won't talk to and has no interest in understanding. Got it. But it's worth asking why Trump would repeatedly deny supporting Project 2025 on the campaign trail. Was it to appeal to libs like Sam Seder?
Because Project 2025, when described to people, and this is why it revealed itself in polling, is pretty fucking intense. If you tell someone, hey, by the way, I've got a guidebook for how I want to govern. Okay, what's your guidebook? I effectively want to weaponize the entire government to do my bidding in every capacity. And eventually, if things go my way, I would like to hand over the company to a billionaire oligarchy in which they're going to have a techno-monarchy and be able to control with an iron fist. How do you feel about that, America? Even Republicans are going to be like, nah, doesn't sound great. You know, like I'm all for Trump, but like you know, freedom. So I'm definitely way more for freedom. All right, well then I will put you down as you do not think that's a great idea. So campaigning on that idea perhaps would be, I'm sure pollsters were showing them at the time, something that could hurt you. So instead, you start to distance yourself from the entire idea of it. You start saying, they just keep on saying Project 2025. I mean, I think they're obsessed. You know, just because a couple of people who I may have interacted with in the past have suggested that they want to work to some capacity with that doesn't mean that I care about it. Meanwhile, people were trying to point out very clearly that, hey, by the way, these aren't just some people that you've had random connections with. These are your fucking staffers. These are not just like, you know, distanced associates. These are people who've worked directly with you. These are collaborators. These are people who you most likely will be having as part of your next administration. And they are directly planning, plotting, and designing Project 2025. So, no, you cannot separate yourself from it, even if the majority of the people don't want to hear it. Why is it, and this is why I keep joking about this, that Mussolini did not advertise some of the more extremist and exterminationist and you know, outright fascistic policies, but did a lot of populist policies. That's the entire purpose of trying to explain to people what populism is and why there are faux populists like Donald Trump, like Mussolini, like Adolf Hitler, like people who say, I'm going to make the trains run on time, because that's what people want. People want the trains to run on time. That is a problem that we have in Italy right now. So I'm going to advertise to all of you, as you know, your potential future leader, will make them run on time. That's a policy I care about. And then when I come into power, I'm actually going to do shit that is way more fucked up. You should have been paying closer attention to what my actual policies were. You should have been paying closer attention to the actual outward bigotry that I was saying, because that's what I truly care about. That's why it's important to identify that before they come to power. That's why people were sounding the alarm on Project 2025 and talking about how disastrous it'll be for America and the world.
Or maybe it's because he knew his base doesn't support large swaths of the policy agenda laid out in the project's 900-page document. So to say that Trump is implementing...
Yeah, Anna, and so wouldn't it be a really terrible thing if there were people who say we're the home of progressives who had a large network that people trusted, and they started selling people on the idea that Trump, in fact, is a populist, that he actually does care about a lot of working class issues, and then that he's going to have this brand new opportunity here that you're going to see for the first time ever, where the MAGA crowd is going to revolt against him if he doesn't actually follow through on those. So we're gonna really see what happens, and we're hopeful. We're hopeful for what's about to come, because we think that he'll have to follow their policies.
Project 2025 isn't even fully accurate because, well, there's a lot that he doesn't agree with that's in that document.
I'm sorry, is she calling herself out? They must realize that, right? Because that's what y'all were doing. Yeah. No, everyone knew this. Everyone was very clear. I think even y'all were clear about this before the election, that he's obviously going to try and enact Project 2025. That this is something that we really got to be worried about. He might not say it out loud, but that's the entire problem. Like, that's what's scary about this.
And said that he won't actually pursue. After getting elected, he said these things. For example, Project 2025 wants to eliminate every single tax bracket and replace it with just 2 brackets, 15% for anyone making under $168,000 annually, and 30% for those earning more than that. If this is the first time you're hearing about it, it's because Trump hasn't mentioned it and isn't likely to pursue it. And are we gonna pretend like Trump read a 900-page document? Really? He does, however, plan to extend his 2017 tax cuts for individual filers. Trump also wants to lower the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%, which
By the way, there's a website you can go to. It's project2025.observer. That's the URL to show you how many of the actual policies they've implemented. And I was wrong. It's already at 36% worth of the policies by agency. They've completely accomplished what they were supposed to do with U.S. aid. For the Department of State, they've achieved 89% of it. And as you can see, they are consistently doing what they've been planning, which is to effectively implement having Trump associates get into every single different facet of the security apparatus. And then once in there, fire or get rid of anybody who's not going to be amenable to his policies and his administration. So they are absolutely implementing Project 2025. The White House, 12 objectives, 88% complete. Personnel, 6 objectives, 58% complete. Department of Justice, 56% complete. It's really horrifying when you start realizing that he learned a lot from his first run, in that there are a lot of safeguards within the U.S. administration and the many branches of government to try and prevent full-blown authoritarianism. So the best course of action is to obviously get as many federal employees to have to forcibly quit, like Trump is doing right now with this whole I'll give you a great severance package. You should just drop out, and then to fill up all these positions, whether it be the FBI, the CIA, the Pentagon, with people who are directly going to be collaborators with him, which is what he's also doing and has successfully done in a lot of capacities.
Spoken out against repeatedly. Project 2025 also proposes cuts to Medicaid. What does Trump have to say about that?
Social Security won't be touched, other than if there's fraud or something, we're going to find it's going to be strengthened, but won't be touched. Medicare, Medicaid, none of that stuff is going to be touched.
Nothing.
You don't have to. Now, if there are...
Yeah, and in reality, they're already putting forward these weird stories that apparently there's a huge amount of people who are getting checks as part of their Medicaid, as part of their Social Security, and they're dead. That's the lie that Elon Musk is already putting forward. That, hey, by the way, actually, there's a lot of people who unfortunately are just getting huge amounts of money, endless amounts of checks are going to people who have already been deceased, and so this is huge government waste. We need to cut these programs dramatically, and so they're now advertising the entire thing as this is not going to be us cutting Social Security per se. What we're going to do is we're going to make it more efficient so that people who are and have been paying into it, and that's part of the entire thing, by the way. Social Security is not just some government expenditure that just comes out of nowhere and that suddenly just a whole bunch of money goes towards the retirement class. It's something that people as Americans pay into their entire lives, at which point it's a good system to have, that if you are no longer physically able to work, that there should be some program in place to be able to keep you able to buy food, to pay for rent. Otherwise, you're going to have dramatically higher rates of people who are suddenly unhoused and elderly and unable to support or sustain themselves if they don't have any kind of family network or anything else that's going to be able to do that. It's a very valuable program. Some have argued the most valuable program that America participates in on a massive scale. And so now to start tinkering with that, or to start playing with that, or start saying, no, it's not true. We're not going to be eliminating Social Security. What we are going to be doing is getting rid of redundancies and wasteful spending and all this stuff that's like, you don't know this because you haven't seen the books. But when you look at them, there's all these dead people that are getting all this money. It's just like, oh, we're wasting so much cash.
Illegal migrants in the system, we're going to get them out of the system and all of that fraud. But it's not going to be touched.
I mean, well, look, touching Medicare or Medicaid, super unpopular. And maybe Trump is just saying that publicly while behind closed doors, he's telling Republicans who are currently working on a budget that they should totally slash Medicaid, right? Well, it turns out, no, wrong. That's not what's happening. Trump had previously weighed in privately against cutting too heavily into Medicaid, telling House Republicans at a closed door meeting earlier this month that he wants to be very careful with Medicaid. His public remarks on Hannity represented a broader and more forceful assertion of that red line. Nonetheless, Trump's agenda and Project 2025 do have a great deal of overlap, especially in regard to the dismantling of the administrative state, which his base actually does like. But how could anyone be in favor of scaling back on government agencies that are full to the brim with unelected career bureaucrats who get to create, judge, and enforce their own policies and rules? How could this be?
A scathing review of the CDC, finding the agency repeatedly botched its pandemic response and failed to meet the moment of crisis. The CDC long under fire for its guidance on masking and vaccines over the last 2 years.
This is really confusing.
There are more than 10,000 chemicals and additives allowed in food in the U.S., often in small amounts, but many have not been evaluated by the FDA in decades. The majority are safe, but some chemicals allowed here have been banned overseas after research has linked them to cancer and developmental or behavioral issues.
Is the food industry basically policing itself?
I would say yes. 45% of the FDA's overall budget now comes from the companies it's reviewing, and 65% of the FDA's budget specifically for human drug regulation comes directly from Big Pharma itself.
The historic $2 billion payout by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to black farmers and other farmers of color who experience discrimination when applying to the USDA's farm loan programs.
The lender, who was a federal employee, who was employed by a government, spat on me. I was called the N-word from the same official.
So I do a lot of work surrounding environmental justice issues here locally as far as activism goes. And I've done research fellow at...
I'm so confused. Is she backing up this narrative? I was like, if anything, you want to fund those more. Like, this is the same weird shit that I'm getting from Jimmy Dore right now. Jimmy Dore is going after the fact that it's like, hey, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but like, you know, Joe Biden put a whole bunch of money to hire tons and tons of new IRS agents. That's because he wants people coming after you, the working class. And I was like, no, quite the opposite, actually. It's actually something that requires a lot more staffing and a lot more funding, because the majority of people who actually have the resources to be able to avoid paying taxes are the extremely wealthy and have been for a long time, which is why that you get a return on your investment when you put people into those fields, because the amount that they are recollecting from people who would otherwise not be paying their taxes or trying to get away with not paying their taxes or just simply avoiding paying taxes altogether happen to be the most wealthy amongst you. It's ridiculous to take a lot of these agencies and suddenly look at them and be like, well, this one happens to be ineffective, or this one happens to be broken, or this one happens to be, well, yeah, a lot of them are underfunded and should be heavily funded. A lot of them require more funding. A lot of them have been eroded year after year by having, again, neoliberal policies and neoliberal politicians coming in since Reagan onward, consistently saying that you need to gut all of these government programs because government's the enemy, government's the problem.
The local EPA. The admin at the time when I was a research fellow were primarily comprised of people who were affiliated or directly coming from the Department of Defense. And they put in a lot of restrictions as to like what the researchers get to, which PFAS compound the researchers get to study.
Right.
Is the EPA turning a blind eye to these dangerous forever chemicals, and why?
Unfortunately, the EPA is not turning off the tap of these chemicals from the polluters who knew they were poisoning their workers in the 60s and their neighbors in the 70s and ultimately all of us. And they're continuing to allow these polluters to send their PFAS wastes not only into our rivers, but to our wastewater treatment plants, where then they are then sold to farmers who unknowingly contaminate their fields.
Whoopsies.
Wait, none of that's a gotcha. Oh, wow. This is profoundly embarrassing. Sorry, I should let Anna emphasize how exactly she has destroyed Sam Cedar here.
If you watch Beavis and Butthead on the Vanguard YouTube channel, which the majority report hilariously treats as some authoritative source, you'd think that TYT is totally in favor of the Trump administration gutting federal agencies. Except we're not. Two things can be true at the same time. These agencies have been deeply corrupted, do engage in waste, and should be reformed. But treating the federal workforce as if they're Twitter employees is a disastrous way to handle it, as we've been learning in recent weeks.
Who is doing that? What are you talking about? treating them like they're Twitter employees. Yeah, no, the solution really is just to let someone get in there and say, like an Elon Musk, and then just completely get the efficiency going. He will make them more efficient, you know, by completely eliminating them. Like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Why not just get rid of it? I mean, you could say that it hasn't saved the American taxpayer quite enough money. I mean, Elon Musk looked into that. Apparently, it's cost you, what, $770 million? And so he's like, that money should be returned to the American people. And then it's like, yeah, but through their regulation of the banking industry, apparently it saved the American consumer approximately $20 billion. I'm not a maths guy, but $20 billion does sound like a lot more money than $770 million that it's cost you in that period of time. Seems like a really good ROI. From a business perspective, if you care ultimately less about the corporations making as much money as possible and more about the people of your country not just going bankrupt because, again, there will be predatory loans and predatory banks, then yeah, that sounds pretty good, actually.
But let's hear what Emma has to
James,
say about my on-air correction.
It is not the prediction. People make predictions all the time.
Right, I was wrong in my prediction about the election,
this
but
is not making
yeah,
like
right,
some type of, poly market bet here.
Yeah.
Where the outcome we can't tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was abundance amount of evidence of this. And even if your opinion, not prediction, opinion was, I can't see them doing this is pretty radical. The idea that you would mock people for believing it and saying it was a conspiracy theory. The people had Trump derangement syndrome. I'm sorry, give me a break.
Apologies, I forget that Sam usually doesn't let Emma get a word in edgewise, but I'll address what she said in that video in a second.
What? Does she know that she literally hosts entire days of the show? She's the primary host on like Thursdays, sometimes Fridays, if Sam just feels like taking a day off. Yes, Sam Cedar, known misogynist, constantly talking over Emma Vigeland, not allowing her to get a word in edgewise. Wow, you can't do this. You can't both be like, hey, by the way, you know, we're anti-woke now, and then identity politics are destroying the left, etc. And then at the same time, use identity politics to try to weaponize them against somebody else who, yeah, that's not a thing. It's just not a thing.
But before I do, did I, Sam? Did I mock voters who were worried about Project 2025? Because I don't remember doing that. What I do recall is chastising Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party for offering nothing to voters other than incessant fear-mongering about Trump. I also remember criticizing members of the media who simply regurgitated anything the Democratic Party claimed. I also found it fascinating that as the whole of the Democratic Party was engaging in said fear-mongering, they were also playing part in a massive cover-up about Biden's mental decline. I mean, just think about it. Democracy.
Those weren't things you were called out for, and not things that Sam and Emma also were calling out. Yeah, everyone was calling that out. It's not new, not a secret. Go back and you can just watch endless clips of them saying those very things and complaining about them. So
is under threat. We, the Democrats, insist that this corpse stay in the race to give us the best chance of beating Trump and saving democracy. But since Emma brought it up, let's address the...
Emma was tweeting constantly around that time for Joe Biden to drop out. Like everyone, including myself. I'm a Canadian covering world news and politics, and I was saying Joe Biden has got to drop the fuck out. Everyone wanted that.
Fact that inaccurate predictions are totally okay, but only when she's wrong. In the lead up to the presidential race, Emma declared that her final electoral college prediction is that Harris sweeps all 7 swing states and ekes out a victory in Iowa.
Yeah, she was wrong and then admitted that she was wrong about that. Where's, like, I don't think you know what gotchas are. How dare you confirm the thing that you know was wrong and then admit to it?
My only reservation is that I don't want to jinx the results, but I'm trying to avoid the trappings of magical thinking. Well, Emma, the magical thinking is what led you to think that Harris would sweep all battleground states. Not that you cited superstitious jinxing. And of course, Trump, not Harris, went on to win all swing states and the popular vote. The The average of polls clearly showed Harris trailing Trump. She ran a horrific campaign, stood for nothing, was unpopular with anyone who was paying attention, and wasn't even nominated through a democratic process. She was anointed. How's that for saving democracy?
How's that for, again, something that they've both acknowledged and talked about consistently, since like we're now pretty far away from the whole thing. So now that the fog of war has cleared, I'd say every single person, whether they be progressive, a leftist, or anyone left of center who's analyzing that period of time, has now come forward to be like, yeah, I mean, ultimately this gamble was one in which I think a lot of blame should be put upon Joe Biden. He should have dropped out earlier. I think a lot of blame should be put upon the corporate Democrats who consistently tried to say that, hey, we're going to play this game where we're going to tell everybody, yes, we are, arming and enabling a genocide, while at the same time it's in America's interests, and you got to make the trolley problem calculation, and this could actually hurt our ability to get a lot of people out to vote, especially because the galvanizing issue of this current time period, and one that is certainly dominating the youth vote, happens to be, the genocide of Palestinians. But we're going to still just hope that you can make that calculation and realize that Trump would be worse. We hope all of you can realize that. So here you go. We're going to inspire you to vote for we're not as bad as the other guy, but at the same time you should know your place kind of part. Yeah, everyone said that. This is not like, again, a gotcha. This is just like, this is what everyone has come to understand. A lot of people were hoping that in spite of all that, that people will still be just too revolted by what Donald Trump actually stands for, will have enough of an understanding of the fact that he is going to try and enact Project 2025, that he is going to be worse on the issue of Palestine, that he is going to effectively, once he comes into power, enable Israel to, destroy that region of the world and then completely colonize it. I mean, that wasn't even accurate enough. I didn't know that he was going to go one step further and be like, you know what? America's going to colonize it. We're going to do it. We're going to take the Gaza Strip and turn it into the Riviera. It's going to be beautiful. And don't think about it or what the connotations of any of this means. Yeah, turns out he's even worse than originally planned.
But you worked very hard to launder her reputation and sell her to Americans. So much so that I thought maybe, just maybe, all those Kamala Harris ads that interrupted your YouTube videos were possibly clouding your judgment. But you say you were delusional all on your own. And you know what? I'll take your word for it. But since we're on the topic of issuing corrections, one of your viewers is curious about something that you've said and whether you're going to correct it. One of your viewers wants to know that since I admitted I was wrong, can Majority Report admit they were wrong, saying there wasn't a Venezuelan gang that took over an apartment complex in Colorado, even though residents were coming out and saying that was going on for months? I haven't heard a peep from the Majority Report. Well, you know what? That's actually a great question. Majority Report seemed to direct their audience to harass me for months for accurately reporting that story. When that story was updated to include a horrific incident in which Trinidad Aragua gang members literally kidnapped and tortured a couple that lived in that Aurora, Colorado apartment complex, Majority.
But the Venezuelan gangs did not take over the entire apartment complex. As we all learned more about that story, and as it developed more, we learned that this was actually a story concerning predatory landlords. You've never issued a correction on that. You're still like quadrupling down on it. I was the only one willing to report about the fact that there was, in fact, a pair of people from Venezuela who did, in fact, commit some acts of violence. No one's ever on the other side of that story. Every time you do this, whenever you're like, oh, did you hear? Apparently there was a guy from Puerto Rico who stabbed a grandmother in the eye. Are you on the other side of that? The radical left will tell you that apparently it's okay to stab people. No, it's not a good thing. But is this indicative of a trend? Is this indicative of a statistical reality that we should actually be paying attention to, where there are roaming gangs of Venezuelans who are traveling to the United States, who are taking over apartment complexes and kicking out the tenants? Or is there a much bigger problem with predatory corporations that own these properties, that treat their tenants like absolute dog shit, that don't do repairs, that let cockroaches infest them, that have people like literally living in like, the street half the time because there's so much disease and stuff going on in there, and then take zero responsibility when the buildings get condemned? There is. That's the problem. That's what deserves reporting. That's what, if we had independent leftists, say the home of progressive media, that's what they should be covering, because that's going to help the working class. It's going to help people who are being taken advantage of by the predatory landlords. Instead, it's always just like, here's another scary story. A person who doesn't look like you has committed a violent action. Oh my God. Whoa. They're doing violence. And They don't look like me. That's scary. I'm scared now. I'm really scared. What should I do about this? What should I do about all this fear and anger that I have boiled up inside me? Well, you know what you should do? Make sure it never happens to you. And you're just like, Jesus Christ. Okay, well, that's why people call you a propagandist. All of this fear-mongering, this, like, you get so angry about this one little event where it's like, yes, no one's on the other side of that. No one is pro-grandma stabber. That does not exist. There is no leftist who is telling you, yeah, that's the revolution, comrades. Just if more Venezuelan gang members could stab grandmothers in the faces, we'd all have communism. That's how that happens, right?
The report couldn't be bothered with it at all.
A Colorado apartment complex plagued by suspected Venezuelan gang activity in the spotlight again after a brutal kidnapping.
I'm not even going to go through this again. If you would like to learn about this entire issue in detail, I highly recommend the channel Jose, who's got a video on it. I believe it's 45 minutes long, so it's a little bit of a longer watch, but it goes step by step, beat by beat, fact for fact about every single happened. It's also entirely fair. There are times when he does acknowledge that there are issues surrounding the story that you simply can't ignore, such as, yes, the violence committed in one instance by a Venezuelan, national who came to the United States, but that's not indicative, again, of a broader problem or trend when related to the story. It is consistently, and as reported by Anna, seems to be told to you that it's involving Venezuelan gang members coming to the United States, kicking people out of their apartments. That's really scary, right? That's not what the story ultimately was about. It was about predatory landlords mistreating their tenants. And even the people who lived in that community were saying that's what the problem is. If you speak to them, if you interview them, they were saying the problem is the landlords, not the Venezuelans. And if you add, there is one instance where Venezuelan people committed a crime or committed a bad action or did something negative, that doesn't take away from the fact that overarching part of the story and what people should focus on is the predatory landlords doing evil on a much more mass scale to a lot of their tenants.
Whipped, they were beat, they were victimized, they were...
Earlier this month, ABC News had this headline, quote, ICE carries out raid in Colorado, 100 members of Venezuelan gang targeted for arrest.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we're taking ICE raids now as our source? Jesus Christ. How much for this is your call out of the majority report, by the way. Yeah, no, sorry. I'm not going to be choosing the ICE raids as my go-to for, oh wow. I guess Trump was right. Good thing he's cracking down on those Venezuelan gangs. That really makes me feel better.
Alleged members of Tren de Aragua were arrested at an Aurora apartment complex, chronically short-staffed and underfunded. She put this up on Twitter. Lots of people are spreading this $17 million fire budget cut story, and it's just not accurate. She then included a comical thread to bolster her claim. The thread made no sense, and it was clear that Emma didn't even bother to read the thread that.
Oh God, no. Anna was wrong about this one too. She got called out by liberals. Liberals were calling her out on this one, pointing out that like the report that she had put forward about how there was these massive police cuts. Yes, 100% there's been cuts to the budget, but effectively because they had specifically cut the budget, that doesn't mean that the budget alone was underfunded. The actual council itself ended up funding the police budget to the tune, I think, of like $243 million. I'd have to look back at the numbers again, but they overfund the police budget. That's the story that people should have been focusing on. That at the end of the day, they were spending tons and tons of money on their police force, which effectively has very little utility. And once the fires are raging, until afterwards, you can say the police are being used as like emergency services to try and help people. Sure, but there's no reason to be giving astronomical amounts of money to the police budget while at the same time proposing to undercut the fire department, which ultimately didn't even end up happening. They actually had additional funding that year because while the mayor herself wanted to cut the police budget by, I believe, to the tune of, what was it, like 43 million? My numbers are not going to be totally accurate on here. The city itself voted to fund the fire department effectively.
She herself quote tweeted. She was even called out by other lefties like Sam Sachs, who correctly stated that Emma was sharing an incoherent thread she couldn't have possibly read. And then when told the actual facts, doubles down and accuses everyone of lying to help the right. She still hasn't deleted the post that was retweeted 5,000 times. I checked today, it's still up. And therein lies the heart of the issue with Majority Report. Anyone who has a thought or belief that deviates even slightly from their doctrine is just a right-winger. And right-winger.
What the fuck are you talking about? No one said that. I don't think they've even called you a right-winger to this day. Just at this point that you're grifters or something. I think at the most it's just like, I guess this is all because of the Polymarket Studios or what the fuck. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to a lot of people. It just doesn't, like, it doesn't math. I don't understand why you would like debase yourselves, sell your souls, just give up entirely on the concept of a progressive movement. Like, anyone who in their right mind is saying that they would rather have a beer with Charlie fucking Kirk, the white supremacist, than Sam Cedar, like that, yeah, there's something fundamentally wrong with you at that point. And like, to continue to double and triple down and quadruple down on these stories that you have been proven to be factually incorrect on. Like, you can take a little sliver of them and be like, no, I was right about this. There was at least one verified case of people from Venezuela who committed an act of violence towards a tenant in a building complex. That is 100% factually true. Here it is. You can see it. And it's like, but that's not what you're being called out for. You're not addressing the actual things that you were lying about.
Could never make any legitimate points, right? We must all worship the all sanctimonious majority report and their ideological dogma at all costs, even when there's evidence proving them wrong. Although I can't.
By the way, this is the same accusation that they've levied at me and other people on the left who called them out. I called them out for a very specific thing. Like, I can isolate the issue entirely surrounding the birthing person fiasco, whatever you want to call it. That's not me calling them Nazis. Never once called them a Nazi. And then immediately it's like, well, yeah, because Lancers of the pure left and also demands purity, and anyone who's not 100% pure, even if they agree on 99% of the same thing. And it's like, no, I'm calling you out for a specific thing that I'm saying, and I'm hoping that you listen to me on, not because I want to be better than you, or virtue signal, or woke scold, or be the one pure leftist who knows the truth about this. It's because it's actually damaging to the broader LGBTQ plus community if you continue to push this myth that one of their demands is that women be no longer called women and are erased and called birthing people. That's a right-wing narrative that only goes to serve the right wing and will effectively be used and weaponized against trans people. Because now the right can say, it's not just us saying it, it's TYT. TYT saying that you've all lost your minds. You're all out of control. That things have gone too far. Apparently they want to call women birthing holes. Can you believe that? And then all of a sudden, yeah, that can be incredibly damaging. That's why it's being brought up. And that was the same thing with David Dole. That was the same thing with Mike Figueredo. That was the same thing with the Majority Report. They were all like, by the way, we're not trying to say you're Nazis. We're not trying to call you right-wingers. We're just saying you're misinformed on this issue. I don't know who's told it to you, but broadly speaking, this is not a demand being made of activists. They're not saying that we should just stop calling women women and start calling them birthing people. This is ridiculous, and you must know that because you said that yourself 6 months ago. So I know you know this. You are on, like, inclusive language is good, actually. It was a video that you put out towards MAGA. That's why, like, clearly this is all, like, planned. Like, this, it's not as if, like, there's just no way of reaching Anna. There's no way of reaching Cenk. No. They know what they're doing. They're aware. They're not living in a vacuum. They're consistently taking good faith or good faith criticism or even good faith commentary or good faith colleagues trying to be like, oh, by the way, yeah, this actually will hurt the trans community more than this is a problem. They don't care. They're doing whatever they want.
Decide if people like Emma are really this cultish with their politics or if they're just terrified by their own audience.
DSA Josh, I live on the west side of LA. All the criticism that conservatives are directing towards Mayor Karen Bass is 100% motivated by white nationalism and violent misogyny. They're fascists, full stop.
Hey, DSA Josh, you're unhinged. And guess what? I'm elated that you watch Majority Report. They deserve you. As for TYT, we're going to correct the record when we get something wrong. And I'm positive it will happen again in the future. Because we're human. And guess what? Humans make mistakes. Emma is also susceptible to making mistakes, and that would be totally fine if she showed a modicum of humility and corrected herself. Instead, she plays the role of hall monitor. She polices what one can say, what they should believe, who they can talk to, and what they can talk about. It sure is.
Oh my God, the projection. First off, no, she doesn't. All right, like whatever this mythical version of Emma is that apparently wants to police everybody and be like, hey, by the way, you stepped out of line. Just so you know, hey, by the way, you've spoken ill of so and so. No, that's not Emma Vigeland. Emma Vigeland is one of the first people to correct when she's wrong, and I think most people, you know, worth your time will. That's the actual truth. Not do whatever the fuck this is. You know, this is my response, my call out by completely trying to distract you with a bunch of other topics and issues, not actually pointing out the things that you yourself have gotten wrong. And by the way, the only correction you've issued is the Project 2025 one, not because you're suddenly admitting that it was wrong to say that the broader MAGA movement is a populist one and that Trump is going to follow his own followers. That was a ridiculous assertion, and I think you all know that. And then now you're just trying to consistently twist it like, well, we were wrong in the sense that, like, Trump seems to be doing Project 2025 even though his own base doesn't support it. His own base supports him. He is like a religious figure to them. He is daddy. This is a cult-like movement for the MAGA crowd, the ones who are just devotees, the ones who buy the clothes, they wear the fuck Brandon t-shirts, they buy the stickers for the cars, they do all that kind of shit. For them, yes, they are extreme followers and dedicated. Like, they fucking get married in MAGA gear, okay? For the average Republican or for the, you know, independent voter and stuff like that, there's a lot more room for people who are either undecided or apolitical, as in they don't often vote or aren't often tapped into politics, to reach out to that crew and to say, oh, if we want to build a broader movement, we should be letting people know that politics does directly affect them and it does directly affect the working class, and that if you ignore politics, politics unfortunately turns on you, and that to me would be a lot more fruitful. But whatever the fuck this is, going into, think I was wrong about the Venezuelan gangs, do you? Did you see this? Check this out. There was, in fact, people stabbed by a Venezuelan man, and he was looking real Venezuelan while he was doing it. So, checkmate. Gotcha, Emma, so-called ambassador of the left, the purest of the left. No one else talks like this besides her and Jank. Like, I interact with a lot of these people on a regular basis. I've never talked to Sam Cedar or Emma Vigland or David Toll or any of them, or Kulinski even, where they sit there being like, who amongst us is the one pure left? I'm like, who indeed? Who will be the one to say and take it from the other? She's like, how you doing? Good. Trump sucks. Yeah, he does suck. Democrats suck too. Yeah, they do suck. Fuck. Yeah. Capitalism sucks. It does suck. Yeah, it do. Anyways, you can catch Severance or that White Lotus show. Changed the theme song in the new season. It doesn't have the anymore, so a little different now. But the show's probably still gonna be good, even if the theme song's a little different. Yeah. Like, I'm being serious. That's honestly what most of the discourse is like. I've never spoken to another media figure in politics, in progressive politics, who's ever started demanding that, we declare who the one leftist solely is, because that wouldn't make sense, right? There's no such thing as the leader of the left coming from a fucking YouTube podcast. We're not going to be the revolutionary vanguard, even if it's in Silly and Billy's name.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/theserfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.